is autism a brain-only disease or a total body disease that affects the brain? It's a question that I want to answer in this video. Plus, also, I'm going to be talking about a silent killer that affects brain cells, especially in children with autism. Welcome. My name is David, and let's get at that. Like I was explaining, my question is, as a parent, is autism just concentrated in the brain, or is there something else? And I was always constantly thinking, how can I help my son who was diagnosed with severe autism? And I need to educate me in this issue. So let's keep it going. Another question is, are there imbalances in the biology that I can support? Is there something going on in the body that me as a parent or me as a healthcare provider, can we help in this area and benefit children with autism? But it's very important to know which areas are out of balance. So let's talk about that. And let's look at this slide over here. Biology that creates behavior. Biology that creates behavior. In autism, there are several areas that are out of balance. For example, we got issues like inflammation that we're going to be talking about very soon. There are high level of inflammation in these kids, and that affects different areas of the body. Also, there are issues in the gut. They may have constipation, they may have diarrhea, they may have high levels of bad bacteria. They also have deficiencies of enzymes. That's why they cannot absorb nutrients very well. That's an area that we need to address. And there's something called issues or dysfunction in the mitochondria. Mitochondria is the organelle of energy. It's like the organelle inside the cell that provides the energy for us to focus, to start thinking, for language development. This area are not working properly in autism. And this, I see it as a damaged battery. It's not producing the energy to help you support optimal brain function. And also there is something called oxidative stress. That's like the rust. When something is rusty, it's like an old car that has like a lot of rust on the side. Yes, that's called oxidative stress. Definitely when I realized, I said, oh my God, there are many areas that are out of control in children with autism. What can I do? This was a question that I was asking me. And then I found some research. This is Dr. Martha Hebert. She wrote a paper regarding is autism a brain disorder or a brain disease or a disease that affects the brain? That's a pretty good question. Is autism only in the brain, so we are only focusing in the brain? Or is a disease that is in the body that is affecting the brain? She's a pediatric neurologist from Harvard, and she was constantly looking different areas and different symptoms. So then she realized at the end of the paper that autism is more of a whole body disease that affects the brain, not the other way around. So instead of us concentrating totally in the brain, let's concentrate in the body. What's not working? For example, in my case, as a father, my son his gastrointestinal tract was quite affected. He was having constantly diarrhea and also a lot of like gas. And there was a bacteria present in the gut that was affecting his behavior. And that area, I worked with a doctor and they prescribed antibiotics and high dose probiotics. And it made a huge difference in his behavior. So there are different areas. And for example, for my son, it was this area, but also there are other areas that can be affected in autism. But yeah, this is very important. So when I realized as a parent that this was a really big issue, I knew that nobody was coming to my rescue. This is very important. And we cannot wait. And this is something that happens to all of us as parents, or even if you're a practitioner, or you may have somebody in your family affected. We may say autism, we may say with a different disease like Alzheimer. Nobody is coming to rescue you. You need to learn about the topic and make the adjustment and make the different changes that you need to do. For example, with nutrition, deal with different deficiencies that are present. For example, in this issue over here, there is an issue of inflammation. I'm very curious about this because inflammation can increase the dysfunction of the mitochondria. So if you have a lot of inflammation in your body, and this kit, I'm going to show you in a few minutes levels of inflammation in children with autism. But inflammation feeds the dysfunction of the mitochondria. That means that the center of energy, the mitochondria, is not working properly because there's a lot of inflammation in the body of children with autism. So it's like a cycle. Mitochondria will increase inflammation, and inflammation will increase mitochondrial dysfunction. Inflammation is something that we can work on. Food can influence inflammation, but food can influence inflammation. So working in the area of inflammation not only will benefit inflammation, will also benefit the issues with mitochondria, so they will have more energy. That is very important because it will benefit school. They're going to be able to concentrate more. So helping with the inflammation will benefit not only inflammation, but also mitochondrial dysfunction. So let me show you a little bit more of this, because there are research about inflammatory foods, like fast foods, talking about refined carbohydrates, a lot of sugars, that boost inflammation. And if it boosts inflammation, then will affect mitochondria. So very important. And not only that inflammation, when they start eating a lot of inflammatory foods, then that inflammation stay high for at least 2 to 3 hours. So they're going to have 3 hours of high levels of inflammation, and they already have high levels of inflammation. And I totally understand as a parent that there are issues, like they're very sensitive and they have difficulties in eating new food, but it's like everybody else. I know that they got more issues, but foods we can start a little bit at a time, and you can benefit from behavior therapy. I work with the behavior therapy, and it was pretty fantastic in helping in this area of eating healthy food. So it's very important. For example, foods that are beneficial are like, for example, blueberries, apples, olive oil. These are all anti-inflammatories. Omega-3s, these are anti-inflammatory food. Flax seeds, all anti-inflammatory food. Ginger, turmeric. There are multiple things that you can do to decrease inflammation. So this area is super key for their health. I didn't mention on the previous slide that some of the symptoms that you have related to mitochondrial dysfunction, fatigue, these kids are quite fatigued. And when you try to do exercise with them, they're pretty tired, very difficult to do just simple like playing basketball or play baseball. It's going to be difficult for them because they're quite tired. Very important. That's a sign of mitochondrial dysfunction. Also having regression. Regression, if when you lose an ability, if they got the ability to play a certain game and then they regress or they go back, that's another sign of issues with the mitochondria. And also low muscle tone, low muscle tones. When they have like issues like walking or just drawing things, that's low muscle tone. Yes, that can happen. And issues with the gut, constipation, that's also is related to issues with the mitochondria and also seizures. Kids with autism, they are more prone to seizures. So definitely a sign of issues with the mitochondria, and speech is another area that is affected because due to issues with the mitochondria. So these are things that are quite important for you to understand, and you can help the issues with the mitochondria by helping the level of inflammation. We need to, as a parent or as a healthcare giver, you need to concentrate in these kids to help cut down inflammation. So let's keep it going over here. And let's talk about this. This is a very important study right here. The levels of inflammation in children with autism when compared with typical kids. We're going to be talking about measuring the highly sensitive C-reactive protein. Highly sensitive C-reactive protein. Very important. This is a marker of inflammation. So we're talking about levels of inflammation. This is the silent killer. The silent killer of brain stuff in autism. Not only autism, in a lot of these brain disorders like Alzheimer, we talk about also Parkinson's. These are all brain issues that are caused or they have a relationship with inflammation. And very important in these kids, the C-reactive protein, but it's the highly sensitive C-reactive protein, HSCRP. Normally, these levels are 0 to 3, 0 to 3. But look at this. In kids with autism, the average is 540. Wow. You're telling me about difference? 540. These kids are quite inflamed. It's like having the brain on fire. It's, I like to see this picture because it's an illustration of what is going on in the brain. These kids are inflamed, and we need to address this issue. And the levels of kids with autism, 540. Normally, the normal levels are 0.3 in typical kids without autism. And then look at this. The average on mild kids with mild autism, these are not severe kids. Kids with mild autism, the levels of highly sensitive CRP, this inflammation marker, is 147. 147. So definitely is pretty high. It's pretty high. But look at this. Now you gotta see the results in kids with severe autism. So they make two separations, kids with mild autism and kids with severe autism. The kids with severe autism, look at the levels of the C-reactive protein, but the highly sensitive C-reactive protein, HSCRP. The levels were 985. 985. This is incredible. And this kind of levels is the one that affects behavior. So what can I learn from this study? What can I learn from this study? That the more inflammation, the more severe the symptoms of autism. The more inflammation, the more severe the symptoms of autism. So dealing with inflammation is going to be a big task for us as parents and also healthcare workers. Helping out with inflammation, food is a very important thing. Food can be inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. And I certainly know as a parent that there are issues like feeding issues with these children and adults. But these things, if we work properly, this can be changed. And also deficiency. Kids with autism are pretty deficient of vitamin D. Vitamin D has a very powerful anti-inflammatory effect. Vitamin D has a very powerful anti-inflammatory effect. So if you stabilize the levels of vitamin D in these children, that will definitely benefit the whole biology. They have pretty low levels of omega-3 fatty acid, of omega-3. So adding omega-3, measuring the omega-3 index, being like higher than 8, more likely above 10 in omega-3 index. Also, another biomarker is called the arachidonic acid / EPA. Arachidonic acid / EPA, these are all markers of inflammation. And in this AA or arachidonic acid / EPA, you want a ratio under 3. Higher levels than that, then you have an inflammatory environment. And food can feed inflammation or can be anti-inflammatory. So I think that's all for today. So thank you very much for your time, and bye-bye.